Hi, my name is Lila Faridi, and I work in the Office of Career Services at Cardozo Law School, and I specialize in employer outreach. Today, I'm joined by my colleague, Tara Manny, who's the Director of Employer Outreach at Cardozo Law School in the Office of Career Services.
Good morning.
And I'm also joined by both Lawrence Hassan and David Leichtman. Today, we're going to be talking about Cardozo's Resident Associate Mentor Program, or what we like to call RAMP. So I'm going to briefly introduce Lawrence and David, and then give a little bit of background about the RAMP program, and then we'll have a discussion about the program with Lawrence and David. So Lawrence Hassan is a 2006 Cardozo alum, and he is a partner at Bernstein Liebhard, where he specializes in securities litigation, commercial litigation, complex class action litigation. And over the past several years, he has hired numerous RAMP associates through Cardozo's program, including two 2020 graduates that have just taken the bar and have started full-time, I think, just the past week or so. So we're excited to hear how that's going. I am also joined by David Leichtman, who is the founding partner and managing partner of Leichtman Law, which is a trial law firm that specializes in patent, copyright, and business litigation matters. Prior to founding Leichtman Law, he was a partner at Robbins Kaplan, and he has also hired numerous RAMP associates both at Robbins Kaplan and at Leichtman Law, and I believe he's in the process of interviewing candidates right now for a RAMP position. So just as a little bit of background about RAMP, the program was developed by Cardozo in 2013 as a way to incentivize and encourage small to medium-sized law firms and corporate legal departments to hire entry-level lawyers right out of law school, because these types of employers don't typically bring on such junior talent. Since 2013, over 350 employers have hired RAMP associates through the program. So there's a very nice community there. The important attributes about RAMP are that it's designed to last 1 year. So the program is designed to last that 1 year, and towards the end of the term, the parties, the associate and the attorney, will sit down and decide if it makes sense for that attorney to stay on more full-time in a permanent type role, or for that associate to lateral to a different position. The other important thing about RAMP is the salary is flexible and is negotiated between the lawyer and the new lawyer and the associate, but it's designed to reflect the kind of training and supervision that is required of a new lawyer. And so typically these are not salaries that are at big firm rates. So I'm going to turn it over to Lawrence first and ask him, why does RAMP work for your firm? What is it about the model of RAMP that is attractive to your firm?
Sure, and thank you for having me for this discussion. Look, RAMP, I thought was a really great idea when I first saw it come out. It was both an opportunity for me to give back to Cardozo, which is where I went to law school. So it was an opportunity to maintain a connection with the school that helped me become a lawyer. But it also, for the reasons you just discussed, allowed a firm like mine, which is a boutique law firm, to hire an entry-level lawyer at a price point that makes sense for us. Whereas we're not as large as, your typical big law, Skaddens and Sullivan and Cromwell's, and we don't necessarily have the resources to dedicate to bringing up young attorneys. At the price point that the RAMP program, allows us, to hire a new entry-level lawyer, it is worthwhile for our firm to, give that new attorney a shot and to devote the resources that we can to training. And, the hope is that that entry-level attorney will stay on with our firm. And we've had a number of RAMP attorneys, start with us for the year, and we've hired them on a longer term basis. So whereas the first year market was typically not something that my firm explored. This program enabled us to do so at a price that made perfect sense. In addition, there are also sometimes projects that have a timeline, for example, of a year or 2 years. And this is another excellent opportunity to bring someone on board for a project of that nature, where the level of commitment is mutually understood at the outset. So, and if it works out and you know, that individual can stay on longer and the timing is right for example, our firm to keep a young associate on beyond that timeline of the project, that's wonderful. But at least there's an expectation on both ends from the outset that this could be, you know, a 1-year commitment, and that has been, I think, advantageous for us, and I think advantageous also for new, you know, rising attorneys who don't want a gap in their resume and are happy to have experience from day one after graduation. So I hope that's helpful.
Yeah, very, thank you. And David, do you share in some of what Lawrence just mentioned? What is it about the program that works well for Leichtman Law?
Yes, I agree with Lawrence's points. A few things I would add on to that. To start with, the candidates who we see, both the ones we've hired and the ones we haven't hired because of the number of resumes that we see, have been, you know, fantastic, outstanding group of diverse lawyers. And by diverse, I mean that in many ways, not only, you know, racial and gender diversity, but diverse in their backgrounds and what they have done before they went to law school. And I find them as a group generally to be very mature individuals and very smart individuals. And so that's always the first thing for us is the person a good fit, you know, for our practice, and can they do the work? And universally, we have found that to be the case with, you know, the folks that we have brought on both here and at Robbins Kaplan. And in particular for our practice, which is a mix of intellectual property litigation and general business commercial litigation, Cardozo has a really excellent intellectual property program. The professors are top notch. And so I know when I'm getting a student that comes out of that program, not just the, you know, the regular classes, but also the clinical programs that Cardozo has, I know I'm getting somebody that understands the area of law in which we need them to step in and be able to practice in. And the reason why that's important for smaller firms like ours is because we don't have the luxury of, you know, a lot of people sitting around being able to have the luxury of doing a lot of, you know, ramping up, so to speak. On the other hand, I think the word mentorship in the acronym RAMP is very important because of the limited duration nature of the program. You know, we have over time, both again at Robbins Kaplan and our firm, brought in RAMP associates, and the goal, of course, always is to keep them on after the year ends, because we're investing our time in training them and introducing them to our practice, our clients, opposing counsel in our cases. But sometimes it doesn't work out for a number of reasons. It could be because, again, as a smaller firm, you know, if 1 or 2 big cases settle, we don't have the work necessarily to support keeping people on. On their side, it could be they've made a determination that, you know, I've tried litigation, but I really want to try to now to do transactional work, and I appreciated my year at the firm, but now I want to go in-house or to a more transactional oriented firm. So it gives both sides the ability to test it out, and that's been a wonderful experience. And to a person, again, we've been involved in the program now for 4 or 5 years across our two different firms. To a person, what I would say is that I've enjoyed mentoring them, and even the ones who have left us have remained mentees, and have stayed in touch, and I view as sort of long-term colleagues, who I hope to work with, whether as clients, or I've always told them, for those who have left, to try transactional work. If you come to your senses and realize that actually litigation is the way to go, you're always welcome to come back. And so I do think the mentorship aspect of it is very, very important overall in our legal community, because in the UK and other countries, they have a program when people first graduate from law school. They call them trainees, and what they do is they actually sit in the partner's office. They don't do any billable work, but they sit, or very little billable work, but they sit there and they listen all day and they observe what the experienced lawyers do. And we don't have any training program like that in our country. In our country, we just hire them and throw them into the fire. And there's not really an opportunity for them to learn by osmosis. Now, during COVID, obviously that has been a little more difficult. But putting COVID aside, we actually do follow that learning by osmosis practice. And I will often sit in the offices with the associates, or they'll sit in my office, even on matters they're not working on, just so they can hear and listen to my side of the conversation, the client side of the conversation, opposing counsel side of the conversation, listen to court conferences, participate as much as possible. And that's really how you learn in this profession. And I don't think at the big firms, which are under so much pressure on the billable hour, they have that flexibility. So the RAMP program, because we're not worried about charging every billable hour, in part because the candidates are not paid the same as a big firm rate. I don't need to squeeze every nickel out of their time, and it gives us the opportunity truly to be mentors to young lawyers who, over time, even if they don't stay with our firm, I think will largely benefit from having been with us.
Thank you. That was very helpful. Lawrence, is there anything you wanted to chime in before we move on?
I just wanted to echo the caliber of candidates that we've both interviewed and hired have really been exceptional. We've been very pleased with the work that they've done. And I also just wanted to add an anecdote on the timeline. We actually hired a RAMP candidate, I think it was 2 years ago at this point, who was on, had a limited visa to be in this country. She was from China, and she only had a year. And so that's all she was looking for. And a lot of firms are looking for a long-term hire. They're not necessarily looking for a 1-year commitment from anybody. But it just so happened that we had a project that was perfect for her, and we were able to hire her, and it worked out wonderfully. And we do stay in contact with her. She's now back in China. And honestly, you never know, that could ultimately become a referral source of business, a new link, and I know that she really appreciated her time and the opportunity to work at our firm, and likewise the mentorship that comes along with that. So there are unique circumstances that make this program, really, really valuable to both sides.
Right. And I think the other thing that I've talked with both of you about individual is sort of the timeline for RAMP, right? In the timeline is flexible. It's really a rolling program and addresses your needs, right? So unlike the big firms that hire a year out, 2 years out, securing their associates, smaller firms don't practice like that. And so you can access talent and resumes usually starting, prior to the person's graduation, all the way up until after the bar exam. There are really strong candidates that are still looking after graduation that will end up in smaller firms because smaller firms aren't hiring, years in advance. Do either of you want to speak to that a little?
Sure, I can speak to that by giving you an anecdote from my days at Big Law. I once had a litigation where I was representing 5 of 7 defendants, and a lawyer at a much bigger firm than my big firm at the time was representing the other 2 defendants. And so since I had more of the parties, I was tasked with negotiating with the other side, the scheduling order. And she said to me, just don't schedule anything major between February and May. And I said, okay, should I be saying congratulations to you? I assume maybe he was going on maternity leave or something like that. And she said, no, she laughed and she said, no. She said, what happens is we give out bonuses in January. They all leave in February. And we can't really staff a lot of our cases until the summer associates arrive in May. And that's the cycle with which the big law firms work, is it's very much in tune to the academic year when they have summer associates and when their last group of second and third and fourth years leave the firm. And so for us at smaller firms, we don't really work on the academic calendar. We hire when we have new cases. The big firms have excess capacity. They have lawyers who are, not that occupied, who they can throw on a case. We at small firms don't have that luxury. And so in the middle of an academic year, I can't be thinking about in August or September of 2020 what my needs are going to be in August or September of 2021 or 2022. And what I need is when a new case walks in through the door and my team is already stretched, I need to be able to find somebody who's available sooner than that. We take advantage of Cardozo's program in 2 ways. One, we have just an intern during the semester who gets academic credit, and we're trying that out now, and that has been working out terrific. They work a certain agreed upon number of hours a week. We don't bill them out, but they handle excess research projects for us and things like that, and we evaluate them and they get academic credit. And then we also rely on the RAMP program to have a more flexible timing period in terms of start dates and those kinds of things.
Great. Lawrence, anything to add there? I can move on.
That was pretty comprehensive. I think it covered it. I totally agree that our timeline on cases, normally, class action work, securities litigation work, they're multi-year cases, but we're not in control of, timing to a certain degree when a judge decides a motion that might trigger, discovery, for example. We don't get discovery in my line of work until after we've sustained our amended complaint. So, and then once discovery hits, it could be, tremendous because, these are big cases. And so, to David's point, we're not working on an academic year, we're working on the court's timeline. And so it is great to have the opportunity to access wonderful candidates throughout the year through this program.
Great, thank you. So, one thing that we're all dealing with is the pandemic. And I know that many smaller employers are hesitant and nervous to hire somebody when a lot of us are still working from home or maybe going into the office a few days a week. But of course, there are safety concerns and restrictions on how many people can be in the office at one time. So both of you have successfully hired and managed new lawyers during the pandemic. So I'm wondering if you could speak a little bit on how that's done and how you've made that work. Lawrence, can you tackle that one?
Sure. Yeah. So pre-pandemic, I was actually in the market for a paralegal, to be entirely honest with you. And I had started the interviewing process, and then the whole world collapsed. A few months into it, we decided to pivot, and I said, you know what? I think I got an email from you actually, and I was like, why don't we just look to see who's out there, through the RAMP program? And we ended up getting, I probably 20 resumes from you, and I looked through them. I looked at the candidates. I interviewed 3 individuals. They were all incredible. They presented really, really well, and we pivoted. We just said, forget it. We're going to hire not 1, but 2 RAMP associates, and we did. We started them. When the bar exam was going to take place was a little bit of a moving target initially, but then it was moved to October. And what we did after speaking with the candidates and seeing what they were willing to do or wanted to do, we started them at about 15 to 20 hours a week, and that time we found to be very, very valuable. I had them come in 1 day a week once it was possible to do that in the city. And I would meet with them and would basically give them educational assignments. So not necessarily assignments that I needed done for my workload, but to bring them up to speed in terms of the type of work that we do and our thought process. For example, when we vet and analyze cases, issue spotting within cases, things to be cognizant of. And we would sit down in a socially distanced manner in a conference room that allowed us to do that. And we would, kind of go over things, and, we educated them on what we do. And after the bar exam, they've now started with us. I apologize. They've now started with us on a full-time basis. And, they're able to hit the ground running because they have that background that we, initially worked through with them. And it's been wonderful. They've been coming in and they've been doing great work for us. And we've got them integrated into litigation teams. And so far, so good.
Did you initially interview them over Zoom, or did you meet them in person?
No, so when we were interviewing, we were not at a point when it would have been safe or appropriate to interview anyone in person or see anyone in person. So we did use Zoom for the interview process, but they are incredibly capable when it comes to technology. I don't know if the school prepares them for it or if it's just their generation, but they knew how to use Zoom, and we really didn't miss a beat. Obviously, nothing can replace an in-person, contact, but it worked out really, really well with no blips. And obviously they made such an impression that we hired 2, and we were only even thinking about hiring 1. So I think all of that worked out really well.
Good, thank you. David, how has this process been for you during COVID?
Yeah, so to follow up on the last comment Lawrence made, we have hired through the intern program via Zoom and did interviews via Zoom, and I think it worked out fine. And the process we're going through now is we're looking for full-time RAMP associate to start either in December or January. and we're doing those interviews by Zoom as well. I guess what I would say in terms of the success of working remotely is we try to have 3 or 4 firm-wide calls on Zoom every week, and people stay in touch. That way, it's good for everybody just to see each other's faces. I think the issue really is what I was talking about earlier, is the learning by osmosis. And when opposing counsel calls me now, or a client calls me now, I can't say, hey, wait, hold on, let me get my first year associate to get on the phone so they can listen in and learn.
Okay.
So a lot of those opportunities, unfortunately, are lost. And what we've tried to do in order to replace that, which is probably something we should be doing anyway, is we've instituted a more formal training program. So on one of those 3 or 4 calls per week, every week, what we've done is we've created 2 different fact patterns based on cases we've had in the past. We created writing assignments out of those fact patterns, including brief writing, interrogatory and document request drafting, responses to interrogatories and document requests. And then we also did a negotiation seminar where we presented a fact pattern, and we asked our associates to engage in a negotiation while the senior lawyers observed and gave them comments. So things that they, in the ordinary course, if we were learning by osmosis and all together, they would get to observe in a normal day. We're having to create opportunities for them to get that training in other ways. And I think it's just very important in terms of, of firms being mindful, that these are different times, and that we have to, make sure, again, that mentor part of the RAMP acronym is being met by both the firms and the candidates. The issue, though, with doing those kinds of assignments is it obviously adds burden onto the associates, because in addition to their regular work that they have to do, they now have these additional assignments. And so we need to be, even though we'll set a timetable for the submission of the work, we have to be flexible with that, and very mindful, in these times. This isn't unique to the RAMP program, but I think as we're all more focused on mental health in the legal profession, we have to be mindful of being patient, being kind, and that with people working from home, in actuality, our workday has been extended. So people start earlier, they work into the evenings, they might have more breaks during the day to walk their dogs or have a meal with their family members, or whatever it is they're doing. But we have to be, mindful of making sure that at a certain point in the day, people turn their computers off, put their work aside, take their living room or dining room back, and make it the place where they live and not the place where they work. And so we try to be mindful of that most of the time successfully, but not all the time successfully. And I appreciate, and I've said to the associates, if we're overworking you or overextending you and there's stress being created by the pandemic, please tell us that and we will accommodate that. And I think that's a very important aspect of working remotely in the time we're in.
Definitely. Tara, any final points or questions before we?
I have to say, this has been great. I'm signing up for RAMP if I were an employer. And we do appreciate your time, and also just how positive you have been about our students. That really gives us the confidence when we're speaking to other employers to be able to say, we've heard great things about the program, we've heard great things about the students. We obviously think our program's, a good one and works for a lot of people. And we obviously have strong thoughts about our students, but when we hear it from an outside source, it really gives us the confidence to be able to say that. So I appreciate that a lot.
Well, thank you for inviting us to participate in it.
Yes, I echo that. And also, if anyone ever wants to reach out, I say this for myself, if anyone wants to reach out and speak offline about the RAMP program or have specific questions that they may not want to pose to the school, but want to pose to somebody who's been through it, who's hired people through the RAMP program, I'm always available. My link, you can go to the website, Bernstein Liebhardt, and I'm available by phone or email.
Same here.
Thank you both so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.